Hello, hello, hello. Happy Tuesday, Thrivers. I would like to welcome everyone to the next episode of the You Thrive Everyday show. So today we have another extravagant, and I do mean extravagant because I know that this conversation is going to be super colorful. So I want everybody to scoot up, turn the speakers up, because I feel like this is just going to be a profound interview. We have had so many profound interviews, and this is not to undermine anybody else's interview, but I definitely know with the knowledge that's going to be spread today that this is monumental. So I want to introduce Mr. Sam Polk. So Sam, please tell us your title, meaning what it is that you like to be called, and where you're from, meaning where you're born and raised, where you're born, because some people were raised in other places. So where you're born, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. Well, my name is Samuel Polk Jr., and you can just call me Sam, or Brother Sam. That's the only ID. I was born in Jackson, Mississippi, raised in Jackson, Mississippi. A pretty black town. I would say about 97% black town. Black mayor, a lot of black love, and it was a different place. And growing up, I thought everywhere was like it. I didn't learn that it's a different. Jackson, Mississippi is a different planet. I'll put it like that. But as we get into like your questions, I can tell you why, like different specifics on what made it different than other places I have been. Tennessee, good, like in a northerner's mindset may think that what's the difference? Tennessee and Mississippi is the same thing, but it's like light years difference. Jackson, Mississippi is like, Mississippi in general is like going in a time machine. And it's a different place, it's a different time, and it hadn't quite caught up with the rest of the country, if you understand what I mean. Yeah, but I am a historian. Yeah, I'm a historian, sociologist by academic training. I love to study Black culture, not just African American, but the diaspora, which means anywhere that Black people are. If it's Russia, if Black people are there, I got to find out what they're doing and how did they end up there. So that's my thing, and it's a labor of love, but it's also I do it. If I didn't make any money at it, I can't help myself. So if
It's
I'm
a
not
passion,
reading,
it's your purpose. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you starting that introduction like that, because we will get into later on in this interview what it's like to be a historian in our culture, because of some of the experiences that our ancestors have went through, and to be emotionally attached enough to be able to understand people's perspectives and how they were raised and why certain things went on in certain time frames, and not to hold a bias. To me, that's monumental. So we will definitely get into that down the line. Okay, so Jackson, Mississippi is where we're born. So were you raised there? So was it like you were born there and then you kind of migrated later on? I mean, like early in life, or were you born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi?
Yes, born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi. Came to Tennessee to go to college.
Okay.
And never went back. Love to go visit, and love my family and my people that are there. But sometimes you outgrow a fishbowl, you know what I mean? You can love it to death, but ain't nothing there for you but trouble, you know? And you have to leave and look back to kind of get that sometimes, yeah. So my favorite place on earth, don't get me wrong, you know?
Nah, I
your favorite place on earth could be the fair, but you can't stay at the fair all no
You can't do it,
24/7.
right? Okay, so tell me, who raised you? Were you raised in an environment where a mother and a father were present? Were you raised by grandparents, distant family, or what?
Actually, raised parents, a mother and father. I'm a
Mhm.
junior, so my dad gave me his name. Mother was always there. My mother is the reason why I read. He forced me to read as a kid to kind of keep me out of trouble. And it became something I love to do because she did it in a small way. Find out what I was interested in. And as a little boy, I may have been interested in animals. So she would take me to the library and give me a book about tigers. And it started out like that. So it didn't feel like I was being punished because I was actually learning something about something I was, interested in. It became like a lifelong passion of mine to read and find out things. My dad is actually an educator, so he always pushed me to do well in school. I couldn't play sports if I didn't do well in school, so that was his, I guess his way of motivating me to do well. You could say I was raised by my grandparents too. Everybody was around. Mississippi is one of those old-fashioned places where, like, it's like the movies, like literally, like you see grandparents every day, you see uncles every day, you see your aunts, you see your cousins. So it was a very nurturing environment. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Amidst all the chaos, family was the happy place. So
Right.
I'm blessed in that respect. Yeah, yeah.
So
Blessed.
you
I
got
wish
to
I could
live the
give you a.
opportunity of the saying that it takes a village to raise a child. You
Absolutely,
had a
absolutely.
village.
Whenever I got a whooping, I didn't just get one. I got 5 or 6 of them. You know what I mean? So, absolutely, it's a village. It was a village, no doubt. Yes, ma'am.
That's hilarious. Okay, so we kicking in, and this is really live. So what's hilarious is, like, I was just like reminiscing with my cousin, like, and I swear to God, like, we all grew up together, but she was the only one, like if you got consecutive ass whoopings, you know what I'm saying? It was like, okay, this person whoop your ass, and then this person whoop your ass, but her ass whoopings were simultaneously by several different
Oh
people.
man, like so she got like jumped. She got jumped,
And
man.
it's not funny, but it is. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mm-hmm,
damn. I was like, damn, cousin. I remember you used to get fucked
mm-hmm. But you know
But
what?
she was trying
Every.
it, because we were girls. And so it was
Mm-hmm.
not allowed. Like, it was certain things that you didn't do. And so
Absolutely.
that's how we grew up. So we wasn't raised in a type of environment where it's known to take a time out. You know
No,
what I'm
no.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
And go sit in
Mm-hmm.
a corner and go think
No.
about what the hell you just did. It was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Right.
okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that
So,
none of that. All of that is for me. As the timeouts and the you're grounded. I never ever have been grounded. The ass whooping was enough. Um,
you don't
so
have to be grounded.
mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. No,
But see,
I would have
that's
took
too.
some.
That's the difference in baby kids and badass kids. You know what I'm saying? I was a
Mhm.
combination of both. So I knew,
Yeah.
like, I could take an ass whooping, and then I'm gonna proceed to
Mm-hmm,
to do what the
mm-hmm.
hell I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's when parents got smarter, was dealing with my generation and kids
Mm-hmm,
like me. Okay, but
mm-hmm.
anyway, back to
Absolutely.
the switch up. Okay. So we are raised in the South with our grandparents. We have a village. We have a nurturing community. We are involved. We're exercising the brain. We're
Mm-hmm.
reading, and we are involved in the sports, and we understand the consequences. Father put that in perspective. If you're not handling your business, you can't go have your
Mm-hmm.
fun, which is
Right.
sports.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
having that, because pretty concrete. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Especially to
Mm-hmm.
learn that young. Dun,
Mm-hmm.
dun,
Mm-hmm.
dun. So I want to know what kind of knucklehead shit you was doing, even
The,
though.
the, the, the kind of trouble I used to get in, and I got into a lot of it, but it was never from an evil type of mindset.
Of course.
I just always did something stupid. Say for instance, we're in church, right? And I'm 6 years old, and I don't know no better. The choir singing. So I'm saying like, well, they singing, I'm gonna sing. So the last song I hear on the radio was Cool in the Game, Celebration. So I just started singing Celebration as loud as I can. I'm just trying to sing like they singing. I don't know the difference. Man, I get an ass whooping when we get home. I couldn't do nothing
That's
right. You
a
know what I
jam,
mean?
though. That's a jam.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, the whole time I'm like, they singing. How come I can't sing? That's the kind of trouble I got in, like stupid stuff. But I was never just doing depravity all over the place. It was just doing something stupid, like going out and staying out too long. And I may have been 15 minutes late, but you still got that ass whooping because you were supposed to be in 15 minutes early. So just dumb shit, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, nothing terrible, but just I just couldn't get out of my own way doing dumb stuff. Losing my glasses,
So
something
as
like
a
that.
teenager, yeah. And so this is the difference. And I mean, this is just from my perspective, being a city girl, because I'm from Chicago, but my
Mm-hmm.
second home is the South. I love the
Mm-hmm.
South.
Mm-hmm.
But just from my perspective, because the South is a little slower. And when I mean
Mm-hmm.
slower, I don't mean ignorance and mentality. I
Yeah.
mean just that you guys' worries are different. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
The pace forward.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
having had said that, as a city kid, there is like way too much to get into
Mm-hmm.
as a
Yeah.
teenager.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you can get caught up into a momentum because of the pace. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Where the momentum
Right.
is so fast that you're
Mm-hmm.
not even able to think about what you're doing. You just go. And
Yeah.
so what I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
see sometimes in the South is that sometimes it could be the opposite, where the momentum is a
Mm-hmm.
lot slower. So it's like things are kind of being done or experimented, like strictly out of boredom. Like, I'm bored. What are we gonna do?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. That's definitely true. That's definitely true. An idle mind, what they say about an idle mind is the devil's workshop. But I can definitely see how things can come at you so fast you get caught up in it. With the reverse side of that, if nothing's happening, you're gonna find something to do. And oftentimes
Exactly.
when you're young, your decision making ain't the best. So usually what you decide to do is not the smartest thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I can see how you can be handicapped a little bit on both sides from
Right.
country town or a city town. Yeah.
So
Growing
this
up has
is
its hang up no matter where you are.
it does.
You know.
So this is what I know. So this is what I know. I study astrology. I don't care what people are into as far as horoscopes and sun signs, like you're a Leo, you're this, that. I believe in
Mm-hmm.
astrology, which means you're made up of so many different signs. Energy is distributed totally different. But on a superficial level, on a more superficial level, what I do
Mm-hmm.
know is that you are a Leo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a Leo male, I mean that's alpha. That's her. That's
Mm-hmm.
also attention. That's the sun sign. So,
Mm-hmm.
as a teenager, what was your journey? What was your confidence? What was your emotional patterns? What was your thinking process as a teenager, especially as a Black male?
Right, right. Well, as a teenager, it went by so slow because while I was a teenager, I wanted to be everything but a teenager.
Okay.
So when I was 14, I wanted to be 24. When I was 15, I wanted to be 25. So I was always trying to do things to make myself look like I was older because I did not like the other kids around me. So I would find older men to pattern myself after. And that just made being a teenager 10 times longer because you have to work hard to do that. Because the people that are around you that are in your peer group, you're not interested in doing what they're doing. You're not interested in talking about what they're talking about, their subjects. So you're always seeking validation from older men so you can be one of the club. And that's what I spent my teenage years trying to do. Whatever I was doing or whatever I chose to pursue, I was so wrapped up in it and trying to look older than I was because I felt older than the other kids that were around me. I just wasn't on that level no more. And I always felt more comfortable with older people. And that's the kind of company I saw. So high school years, junior high years, they seemed like forever because I couldn't wait to grow up and get out of it. And I had a great time. I had a good time, but I wasn't your typical kid. Yeah, I was a little strange. You know, I wasn't the cartoons and the video games. I was trying to go learn how to do something to make some money. I was trying to see how I could jumpstart getting into school. You know, I was a weird teenager to have a conversation with. I'll put it like that. And the funny part is when you get of age, you're like, damn, I wish I could go back. It just chill for a little bit. But I was so hyper and I was so overly aggressive in pursuing the things that I was interested in. The time just went by so slow.
Mm.
Yeah, it seemed like 100 years, but that's how I was as a teenager. I was a little weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now that, as a man, you're able to look
Mm-hmm.
back on this teenager, what would you say were like your knucklehead moves?
Trying to impress other people, number one, because number one, other people don't care. If they like you, they're gonna like you no matter what you do, and they're gonna talk about you no matter what you do. Also, you know, the youth is wasted on the young. You know, when you get older, you learn this stuff, and you're like, damn, if I had knew that then, I could have been king. But trying to impress people, trying to live up to somebody else's expectation for you instead of the one that you should have for yourself. And even as a teenager, you don't even have a fully developed cognitive ability to even know what that should be yet. So you just have fun and just live your life because you're not going to get that opportunity to be kind of carefree and no bills. Enjoy that time. If me now could talk to the teenager me, I just say, hey man, just get somewhere, sit down and play a video game. Just chill out because you're not going to have that opportunity when you get older. You're going to really be hustling in, and just enjoy this time, you know. And that's what I would do if I could. Not saying I'm Michael Jackson or anything. I just didn't have no childhood, but I think I squandered a lot of it trying to be grown. You know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, what kind of trouble is teenage Sam getting in, quote unquote, trouble?
Fights, number one. But they were good fights. You know, like John Congressman. It is why is it John Lewis used to say good trouble. All trouble ain't bad trouble. You know what I mean? I used to get into fights all of the time, but it was because I was fighting for somebody else, somebody that was weaker and they was getting picked on. But maybe he lived 2 doors down from me in my neighborhood. I didn't even like the kid. But you can't be where I'm from and get beat up in front of me. I got to help you. You understand what I'm saying? So I would always get in trouble because when I got into the fight, I hurt somebody because I could fight a little bit. But I'm always protecting somebody, but the authority figure don't see it that way. You see what I'm saying? The guy that did the most damage is the one that gets in trouble, not the guy who started it all the time. So I was always trying to fight for somebody else. A lot of the times, somebody who wasn't willing to fight for himself, which was stupid. If you're not willing to fight for yourself, it's not worth my time to help you. You understand what I mean? But I was always trying to be that anti-bully. Like, everybody's scared of a bully, right? Well, the bullies were scared of me because I look for the bullies to fight, to pick on. Like, take the bullying shit somewhere else. But like, these cats with me, leave them alone. Because,
Right.
because they can't hurt you. But I'll stand in there for them. Just leave us alone. I was that kind of guy. And I stayed in the principal's office, stayed in trouble, because I was always fighting. I never started a fight, but I ain't never ran for one neither. So if you was messing with a friend or a compatriot of mine, I just felt like it was a duty to help out. And I grew up in a place where fighting was a badge of honor. Like, you had to be a fighter because it was just the thing to do. We were bored. We had nothing to do. It's Mississippi. So if you were a guy, you were pretty much judged by how you handled yourself with your fists. You know what I mean? And not that I embraced that, but that's just kind of the way it was. You know what I mean? And the biggest whooping you would get is if you came home and you ran from a fight. You see what I'm saying? So it's a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? But a lot of those things that happen in our lives, I don't believe anything happens by mistake. So sometimes even the minute thing that happens that you don't think much of is training for something later on in the future. And it may not be a physical fight, it may be a mental fight, it may be an emotional fight, but toughness is toughness, whether it's physical or mental. So one thing is preparing you for another thing. There are people who could whoop the whole world's ass physically, but let somebody die, let somebody break up with them, they'll commit suicide because mentally they the weakest person in the world. You see what I'm saying? And the two kind of go hand in hand. And when you learn how to balance that thing out, you can become pretty dangerous. You know what I mean? Especially when you learn how to eliminate fear, and you understand that the brave man and the coward, they feel the same fear. It's the way they react to the fear, which makes one of them a coward and one of them a brave man. You see what I mean? So when you kind of figure that stuff out, you kind of on your way a little bit, but it takes a while. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay, so I have to it makes total sense. So I have to ask this question, right? Which is that energy can go two different ways, right? You have the energy of the individual that is violent and they just love the violence. So they are deemed one of those individuals that you would call a bully, you know? And so what you're saying is that you were on the opposite end of the fence. So looking back now in the mind frame that you are in now, what do you think helped you differentiate between that borderline of bully and kind of savior?
I think a lot of that is innate. It is what it is. You're naturally the savior, or you're naturally the bully. You're naturally the hammer, or you're naturally the nail. I don't want to be the nail. I want to be the hammer. But that doesn't mean you have to be a bad guy. There's a saying, violence isn't the answer. But that's wrong. Violence shouldn't be the answer. But if it is the answer, it's the only answer. You know, some of the baddest cats in the world are priests. You know, they wouldn't hurt a fly, but you better not fuck with them either. You understand what I mean? So when you learn what the nature of the world is, everything's trying to survive. Everything's trying to eat each other to survive. You know what I mean? It's really no good or bad. Just everything trying to survive. The deer hates the wolf because the wolf eats the deer. But the wolf got to eat the deer to survive. So who's right and who's wrong? You just got to learn how to survive in this world. And I learned a long time ago See, bullies don't like violence. Bullies like to beat people up. Beating people up is fun. Violence is not fun.
Exactly.
So if you can provide a little violence for the bully, he'll leave you alone. You understand? He'll go, even if you can't do nothing but scratch his ass. When he look in the mirror, the next day he say, I'm not messing with him. I'm going to find somebody else to mess with. So sometimes if you want peace, you got to learn how to be a little violent sometimes. And then people leave you alone. You know what I mean? The only thing that creates peace or what's the term? Détente is a French term that means equal annihilation. You know what I mean? America and North Korea can't stand each other, but you don't really see them mess with each other too much because each one of them has the power to wipe the other one off the planet. So they kind of lay back from each other. That's all I want. I don't need you to like me. Just leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? Because I give you what you want, and I'm pretty good at it. But I would much rather be your friend. You know what I mean? I have a tendency to ramble, so I hope that makes sense.
No, you are so good. No, because this is the side of the perspective that people need to understand. And especially me with the audience that I attract, especially with what's going on in this fake ass media right now with Chicago. A lot of it is, you know, the aggression and the heathenism behind the aggression. And so we need to understand the different perspectives and the different levels behind aggression, behind violence. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I'm trying to get you to regurgitate, what you're doing in a very artistic way. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I appreciate you. I think the main difference is the motive. You know what I mean? The motive behind why you're doing what you're doing. Are you beating the hell out of somebody just because you like that? Are you beating the hell out of somebody to save yourself or save a loved one? That's the difference. You got good trouble, you got bad trouble. It's not, you know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So now we're taking this journey. So what's going on in like high school? What's going on with your mentality as a evolving male? What are you thinking about self? What are your feelings about self and self-worth, and you know how you're feeling and absorbing your environment at the time?
Well, I had a really unique teenage period where my problem wasn't self-esteem, right? It was the lack of self-esteem from people around me. So being a reader and even a researcher before I even really knew what that was, studying older men that had a kind of a knowledge base that I wanted to acquire, I knew that Black people in Mississippi were a lot greater than they believed that they were. And my mission at an early age, I say around the age of 15, and I haven't failed. I had two things I wanted to accomplish every day when I woke up in the morning. And since the age of 15, I have not failed in accomplishing that, even at my age now. And that was to learn one thing about my people that I didn't know the day before. And the second thing was to teach somebody something about our people that they didn't know. Now, the second one was the much easier, because you'll be surprised at how little Black people know. So it was always easy to teach somebody something. And I was always that guy that people came to, like, hey man, what's this? You ever heard of that? Who is this guy? I could teach them something fairly easy. The trouble when you have limited resources or limited books is learning, like truly learning something new every day. And that just became my mission. It still is to this day. And I spent my time trying to make other people feel better about themselves. Believe it or not, people who were not proud to be who they were. People who were not proud of the shade of skin that they had or the texture of hair that they had, because our counterparts made them feel so bad about it. And the truth about it is that what they didn't know is they want to be you. But what they can't be, they you know, make to look like the thing that they despise the most. You understand? That's the only way for a really sick mind to feel better about
Right.
themselves.
You have
You
to
know what I'm
feel
saying?
weak. Yeah. They want to
Mm-hmm.
make you feel
Mm-hmm.
weak.
Mm-hmm. So
Okay,
yeah.
so one of the monumental things that you said was that you grew up in an environment where it was in a 90 percentile of blacks, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, having grown up in that percentile, did you see, I mean, as far as what you know about a class of people, did you see like the different levels of blacks where like you've seen poverty, you've seen the middle class, and you kind of seen what others look like when
Mm-hmm.
they made it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The microcosm of the macrocosm is the same no matter if it's sports, if it's music, it's a reflection of the greater society. So even in an all black county, you still can't escape white supremacy because white supremacy is a mindset. And Carter G. Woodson said, if you train a man how to think, you don't have to worry about his actions. And even in the absence of our counterparts, you're still the most racist thing in your community to yourself because you've been
Exactly.
trained to be so. You understand what I mean? So just the proximity of people packed in this little bitty space, you have to ask yourself the question, why is there so many black people? Is this where we want to be, or is this where somebody else wants us to be to keep us away? Mississippi is a big state. Now, Jackson may be 90% black, but what about the other parts? The prettier parts, the more affluent parts, the more financially viable parts. How come we not spread out a little bit more? You have to kind of understand, are we trapped in this thing? Are we here because we want to be, or are we here because we're trained not to leave? You know what I mean? You can keep a sheep in his pen for so long, you can open the gate. He don't want to go nowhere because he's scared of what's out there. And a lot of that I could recognize, but the people around me could not. And when you're trying to find answers to very perplexing problems, if you don't understand the source of the problem, you're always going to be at a loss. You're never going to figure it out. And I have a different mindset. I have a different frame. I live by a different code, and I don't want to offend anyone because I don't know who's all listening to me right now. But I do believe that racism and white supremacy is the cause of all of our problems right now. And a great man named Neely Fuller Jr. said, if you don't understand white supremacy, everything else that you think you understand will only confuse you. Now, that may sound like a crazy statement, but you can break it down, and it's true in every aspect of our lives. And the only way you can combat that is to know that it even exists. And I think some of us are starting to wake up a little more because of the events that you see on TV. But there's still a lot of us that, even in the midst of white supremacy, will tell you to your face it doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
that, you know, and well, we do more damage to ourselves. There's more black on black crime. Well, there's no such thing as black on black crime. There's no such thing as white on white crime. There's just crime. And if you're poor, who do you rob? The person next to you. Who do you beat up? The person next to you. The person next to you always is going to look like you. So if you take Irish people and put them in a situation where there's nothing but poverty and hunger and want, guess what you're going to have? Irish on Irish violence, because everybody's trying to survive. So when you fall in the trick bag of believing, yeah, we kill more of us than they do, you're just going to keep on killing because you don't understand why you're doing that. You've been trained to do it. He don't have to do it no more. You know, understand what I'm saying? He's trained you to do it. You're doing a better job at it than he is. But if you understand why you're doing something, if it's not advantageous to you, or if you're not profiting anything from it, you will stop. But you have to know better in order to do better. You know what I mean? And the problem is learning how to disseminate that information to people so that they can understand it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard.
And I wanna go off on a tangent real quick. We're gonna bring it back, but first we're gonna go off on a slight tangent. So first of all, I want to clarify, because when we get to talking about white supremacy and racism, the speaker can be judged in the fact of saying that they themselves are also racist. And we just want to be clear that that is not that state. We are just stating the facts and what is going on as a whole, as a majority with our American society or culture. So I do want to make that very clear. And then second of all, as a young Black woman, right? Being raised in what we call the trap, and we'll get to that later. But you know, when you hear these enlightened speakers speak, or you hear these adults speak, and they talk about being trained and we're following the program, and it's like, yeah, I hear you, but like, what the fuck are you talking about? So what are you talking about?
The trick is putting it in a way where it's easily understandable. And sometimes you can have a thought that's as pure as the driven snow in your head, but it becomes dirty as it comes out of your mouth, right? But that's only my limited human ability to make you understand. You can't read my mind, right? Well, truth is not always pretty. And the truth, it hurts people sometimes, especially someone who may be the counterpart that's being talked about or being blamed. All the society's ills are being blamed on, or someone who's bringing an information that you may think they're talking down on you. You see what I'm saying? And it's totally not the case, but it can be perceived like that. And you have to understand, as the person bringing the knowledge, how to put it in a way where you can catch more bees with honey. But sometimes there's no way to say something in a nice way. You just say it. But in the face of undisputable facts, we're not talking emotion. One thing that you have to learn how to do when you do my work is you have to divorce yourself of all emotions. And the only thing that you're concerned with is empirical data. Now, if you're talking to someone who hasn't learned how to do that, emotions will take over. Like, you're talking about me, or you put me down. No, that's not it. And if you're feeling a certain way emotionally about facts, that's a personal problem that you may need to take care of before we go any further. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if you get mad at the psychiatrist because they making you relive some stuff, you're paying him to make you relive it. Maybe you're not ready yet. But we talk a lot about COVID-19 now, right? And rightly so. Well, we've been living a COVID-16-19 since 1619. The very fact that me and you, two descendants of Africans, are having a conversation in the United States of America is bearing true to what I'm telling you. White supremacy is the key to all of our problems. If you don't believe that, why are we here? Why are we speaking English? Why is my last name Pope? Why is your last name what it is? You see what I'm saying? These are undisputable facts. Now, everybody has an opinion. And the problem is, most people think they have a right to an opinion. They don't. You have to earn one. And if you haven't studied the true social dilemma that you're facing, everything that you're giving is an emotional response, which is fine, but it's not going to solve any problems. You have to be factually sound. Now, someone that can say white supremacy doesn't exist, that can easily be quantified. That can easily be proven. Now, in the light of information that cannot be disproven, you can't do nothing but agree to that, or at least say, I understand it. But if you still say, well, I still don't believe, we don't have nothing else to talk about, because you're an irrational person. You're so emotional, or you're so heavenly minded, you know earthly good. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes you have to even understand when to say, hey, ain't no need to continue in this conversation, because they just don't. They're not going to get it. They're not ready yet. Not that they're not going to get it. They haven't come to that place where they're ready to divorce themselves from emotion and just study facts and quantitative data. We can prove everything that we're saying. And you cannot argue. You won't have a leg to stand on. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things I'm trying to get better at is expressing myself a little better. Because I got this country accent. I can be a little intimidating. And I don't always use the King's English, let's say. But I'm trying to get better at that. You know what I mean? And
I totally understand. I say that all the time. My first language is English, but I don't speak that well.
Absolutely. Well, we're speaking a language that is not ours. And maybe our tongues weren't designed to speak it well. Maybe our lips are a little too big to speak it well, because it's not our language. You know, you ever heard that term, crabs in a barrel?
Yes, but you got to think about that dialect too, because it's the same as like when you learn how to speak Japanese. You know what I'm saying? To their people, to that culture, to those generations, it rolls off the tongue. To us, it's so like, I mean, you have to teach yourself, I mean, up to how to push off your tongue, how to move your lips, like the whole enchilada. So you saying that is such common sense, but not a common thought, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And that old saying, crabs in the barrel, right? You know, the whole thing, the thing where there's a bunch of crabs in the barrel, and as soon as one gets to the top, the other one pulls them down. I understand why people think that in light of the wrong information. But in light of the right information, you understand that a barrel is not a natural habitat for a crab. Guess what those crabs would do if you put them in the ocean? The same damn thing, because that's how they eat. When they get up to the coral reef, they're so small they can't reach it. So they climb each other. And one gets a bit of food, and they help him back down, and another one goes up. In the wrong environment, it looks like they're trying to escape and somebody's pulling them back. Well, it sounds funny the way I speak, because I wasn't born to speak this shit. That's, Africans end everything with vowels, and then you wonder why we name our kids Shanae and Shanunu and Poo Poo. That's ancestral. You know what I'm saying? But you have to understand, you have to be aware that when you say things to make me feel bad or to lower my self-esteem, it's never the slave's duty to feel bad. It's the enslaver that should feel bad. You know what I mean? So however poorly I speak, it's your fault. It's not mine. I'm doing the best I can, but this ain't the shit I'm supposed to be speaking anyway. You know what I mean? That's what I mean by understanding racism and white supremacy and what it is. It rules your every step, your every being, whether you know it or not. You don't have to know it for it to be true. You don't have to believe it for it to be true, but it is true. And those who have made a real effort to try to enlighten us as a people, they've either killed them or put them in jail. You know what I mean? Right when somebody get rolling, they off them. And that should be proof also. You know what I'm saying? You understand? I hope you do. I hope I don't sound like I'm just a rambling.
No, I totally understand. I totally understand. But like I said, also for those, we have a lot of I don't know what's the terminology. I guess they're called millennials now.
Oh yeah.
and
Bless their heart.
and you know, they're in such a identity crisis right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And 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 a lot of them are using social media because this is their era, you know,
Yeah.
um, to gain knowledge. And so my objective is when they hear stuff like we're being trained or we're being programmed,
Mm-hmm.
what are some words or statements or key terms that we could use to help them identify what it is that we mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
what key words can we use that could cause a light bulb to go off?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because as you're just living and
Absolutely.
you're just going along with the mode, you're just doing, you know, what you're taught. So when someone says to
Right.
you, programmed, it's like, what the hell does that, what does that mean? What do you mean I'm programmed? I'm living the way
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
live. I'm doing what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. And that's so true because here's the biggest issue that you face. It's without certain prerequisite information, it's hard to move forward. Like if you come into my trigonometry class where I'm teaching and you just stand up and say, hey, this shit don't make no sense. It don't make sense to you. But to everybody else who's taking the prerequisite classes, this shit does make sense. You didn't take algebra. You just now learning how to divide. This is not for you to understand. So sometimes I feel in the same boat too. As a young person, I was getting into things that I wasn't ready for yet. Sometimes terminology can be like that. You feel what I'm saying? The right amount of medicine can heal you. The wrong amount kill you. The same medicine, the one that'll save your life, will take you out of this world if you take too much of it. So you have to learn how to meet them on their level. Never go down. Make them rise up to you. But at the same time, speak their language the best you can. Never sacrifice the truth, but talk to them in a way they can understand it. And if you say to me, you're saying that I'm being programmed. I'm not saying that you're being programmed. I'm saying that you are programmed. And you're so programmed that you don't even recognize it when I point it out to you. Now, what is programming? Programming is getting you to operate on a level that I want you to operate on. And if you can divorce yourself from emotions and even divorce yourself from yourself so you can look at yourself, it's so obvious. But if you're not there yet, if you're so offended by every little truth that I point out, you come back when you're ready. I'll be here, but I'm not going to argue with you when I know I'm right. Two fools arguing. A stranger walk by, he can't tell who's a fool and who's a smart man. You both fools. Because if you know you're right, why are you arguing? Just come back to me, young man, when you're ready. You know what I'm saying? But right now, you're so programmed, this conversation isn't going anywhere.
It's irrelevant.
But
yeah.
And the other thing is, real information is still buried in books. Get off of that damn YouTube thinking that you can listen to a lecture on YouTube for 40 minutes and you know every goddamn thing. No, you don't. And there's no easy way to learning. You know what I mean? Real information still buried in books. They're still in the library. And
Exactly.
you have to read. If you are, I don't want to use the term lazy, because most people don't like, the average person, well, I just can't read. I don't like reading. It's because you haven't tried it. It seems like a chore because you aren't any good at it yet. But if you get a small book and you read a chapter and you read a second and you see how smoothly that flows, and you pick something that you really enjoy or something that's really teaching you, you will begin to love it. If you love basketball, when you first started, I guarantee you missed the first 30 shots you made. That did not feel good. But what made you keep at it? Because you wanted to be good at it. And then it became joyful or joyous. You understand? The same with learning. And I mean, it's 2020. If you just want to be dumb, go right ahead. And I have no shame. I don't feel sorry for saying that. But as some of the most spiritual people in the world, we are some of the dumbest. Now, I did not say stupid. Dumb is the absence of knowledge, like being ignorant. When you call somebody ignorant, they think you're insulting. No, you just don't know what this is. That means I'm ignorant to a whole lot of things. You see what I'm saying?
I love that you said that, because I use that term and people get so offended. But I'm like, why are you offended? I'm ignorant. I'm ignorant to so much shit. Like, that's actually why I'm here. I'm here to learn. Like, you know what I'm saying? None of us know it all, or else we would be dead.
No. Right. And the wise person knows they know nothing at all. They just know where to find the answer. So you can almost say it's cheating. But I never tell you I know anything, but I can find out for you. You know what I'm saying? Nobody innately knows everything. Matter of fact, if you are a young person and you want to start reading, right? I'm gonna put you up on game. This is how you know if this is a good book or not that you should be reading, no matter what the subject is. If you open it up and there are no footnotes at the bottom, I'm not talking about like a novel or poetry or nonfiction. I'm talking about something that's claiming to be knowledgeable and teaching you something that you really need to know. If you open that book up and there are no footnotes at the bottom of that page, or there's no bibliography at the end of that book, that person made all that shit up and it doesn't mean anything. If you can't tell me where you got it from. Well, did you have a dream and it just all came to you? You just started writing this shit? No, give me the books you read. If you quote somebody, give me the quote and the author and the book so I can read that and see if you're telling me the truth. That's how you do real research. But you have to learn, you have to do it for a while to understand that. But that's a little game for free. Like, if I see a lot of books that are in circulation right now, young people are reading, and the title will grab you. But it's that very book is basically designed to program you further, because it's you not able to discern what's knowledge and what's harmful, if that makes sense. But a person that would not be humble enough to say, hey, these are the 20 books I had to read in order to be able to write this one, and here they are, and this is where I got my shit from. And this is in chapter 2, I can't even take credit for it because I got everything that's in there from these 15 people that wrote shit 50 years ago, right? If that author cannot do that, don't read their book. Don't waste your money on it. Like, real talk. It's a book is bullshit. You know.
Wow.
It's nonfiction masquerading as fiction. You know. But a lot of people will read things because Malcolm X is on the cover,
right?
Or because it said, because the title grabs them, and it's the new big thing, and that book is doing more damage than any good because the money behind the book is to get you to believe something that you shouldn't be believing. And Black people believe too much and know too little, if that makes sense.
I feel like
believing
we're trained that way.
Absolutely, we are. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. If I can get you to believe something and not know something, the thing that you're believing in could be false and fictitious. I always gonna have the advantage over you. I believe
because
nothing.
what you believe is
know.
what you manifest, right?
Yeah, but it could be a false premise. You see what I'm saying?
But
A crazy
we
man can believe
manifest
Napoleon.
false shit, though, right?
Yeah.
Not?
Like a crazy person can believe he's Napoleon. If he really believes that shit, he could take a lie detector test and pass it. But does that make him right? Yeah, but it doesn't make him right.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. Though he believes it. Even though he believes it. So if they have your belief system, then it's the control, right? Because your belief system is what you manifest. what you
So
create.
absolutely. So it's way more important to know and to not know than to believe in something that you don't know whether it's the truth or not. You just have faith that it is. That's a recipe for disaster. And I know a lot of people that make a lot of people mad because you've been trained to be spiritual and faithful servants. It tell you flat out, be a faithful servant. I don't want to be a servant. You understand what I'm saying? I want to know what you know, so I don't have to have faith, so I can just know it. Now, if I can't prove it, it's out for debate. I'm not saying it doesn't exist or it does. I just can't prove it, and I'm not going to be so filled with ego that I'm just going to tell you that I know it does. You ever heard that? That's not an answer. How do you know it's the truth? I just know it. That doesn't make any sense. If you knew it, you could prove it. If you can't prove it, believe, understand what belief is. That means you don't know. You just hoping. You got faith. Now, that's not a bad thing. But it's also, if that's your final answer, you're always gonna be found wanting. You're always gonna be somebody's servant. And that's just the facts. That's just true. That's quantitative too. We can prove that. You know what I mean? The most
Definitely.
spiritual people in the world are the most depressed. Why is that? Because you're waiting for something in the next life, and you don't even know if there is a next life. Well, I can't have that now. Now you can believe it.
Wait.
You can believe. You can believe all you want.
I
You
can't
don't
with you
get
right
what I'm
now.
saying?
I almost die right here, right now. You know, I'm
Oh
dramatic. I
no.
almost died. Look, I almost died. Wait. Bring it back. Because I am a spiritualist.
I got
I
you.
believe
Me
that
too.
it's right now. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I don't
Right.
care how many alternate dimensions or realities, you know, that we're living out simultaneously. Right now, my focal point is on this one and this time space reality. So I need to do the
Absolutely.
best with that, you know, and create
It's
the
the only
balance.
one I can prove.
Right. And create the balance between this human shell and the spirit, right? Because I'm a spirit that came here to have a human experience. So a balance has to be created between the two. And that's what we're searching for. As a spiritualist, that's what I'm searching for.
But see, that's the difference. You said I'm searching for. The counterpart would say, "But I know."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's already determined that he knows what's out there or what happens after they put him in the ground. No, you don't. Let's cut the bullshit. And if you do, prove it. Prove it. Have you ever been there? Have you ever talked to anyone who has and came back? No. But this journey or the search is the beautiful side of spirituality. The person who believes that he's already got it figured out and you can't tell him nothing. That's being so heavenly minded that you know earthly good, if you know what I mean. And if you are not preparing yourself for the life that you do have, and the only one that you can actually know that you have, and to your understanding, probably the only one you're going to get until you find out different later on. I'm not saying you won't. I hope we do, but I can't put my eggs all in that basket. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And an oppressor can oppress you by teaching you that you have to act a certain way in order to get that milk and honey in the sky after you pass away. And maybe it's there, maybe it's not. But how come you don't have to act like that? How come you aren't held to those same standards? If you love Jesus as much as black people, we'd be running you. You wouldn't be running us. You see what I'm saying? It's just that simple. But I'm a little different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I can't prove it, if I can't prove it, the jury's still out on it. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean it's not a beautiful thing. And it doesn't mean that it can't give you comfort and security and hope to fight on another day when you so low. But I never forget. I can't touch it. I can't see it. I can't prove it. But here are the things that I can. These are the things I'm going to deal with. The things that I know. I'm never concerned with what somebody believes. I'm only interested in what they know and what they don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, total sense.
So
Okay, so we went off on our tangent. Okay, so we're still back in Mississippi. So explain to me, as a human being, this is your upbringing. As you said, you have some nurturers out there. I feel like you should have built up a reputation at this point. You know what I'm saying? Because you seem like the superhero with
mm-hmm.
the cape on. Not physically, but you know what I'm saying?
No.
Symbolically, with
Mm-hmm.
just helping people out,
Mm-hmm.
like just being the voice that that people are not, some of us are not strong enough to let out. So what made you
Mm-hmm.
decide, late in your teenagehood to just like freaking leave? Why? Because most people don't. When you're born and raised someplace, most people
Mm-hmm.
don't leave.
Well, let's say it wasn't a choice. It was if you want to do something, um, wherever gives you the avenue to accomplish it, that's where you go to do it. Maybe you don't have that avenue where you are, so you go seek it. You know what I'm saying? Uh, the myth of the old hobo who picks up and takes off looking for something better. You know what I mean? And he doesn't always want to leave, but sometimes you have to. If you want to accomplish this thing, and the only way you can learn how to do that is 10 miles down the road, and that's where you go. You know what I
So
mean?
what were
So
you
it's not
trying
like
to accomplish?
I wanted to get a college education, and I wanted athletics to pay for it. And you may want to play at Alabama, but Alabama may think that you're not good enough to play for them. So you play where you can. It's just that simple. So a little school in Tennessee called Lane College said, "Hey, you can come play for us." So that's where I went. And it's good to be wanted, and it feels bad to be rejected. So even if it's a place that you didn't think much of, if they pay you a little attention, that feels good. So hey, man, if you want me, I want you, and I'm gonna come give you my blood, sweat, and tears. And that's a lot of the times how we end up where we end up. You know what I mean? I don't know too many people who want to leave home, but sometimes you have to do what you got to do. You know what I mean? And that's
Exactly.
kind
And
of
what sport were
why
you playing?
football. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, football. Play
And so
linebacker.
what was your major?
I had my major. I had two, African American studies and sociology. And most people think that African American studies is history, but it's not. It's sociology, and they're two totally different fields. But every sociologist is a historian. Every historian is not a sociologist,
Right.
because a historian can tell you facts that in terms of dates, when and where. A sociologist can tell you why. This is why this happened at this time. And a sociologist studies society, and they pick out a segment of that society, greater society, to be their main focus. Mine is Black people. There are sociologists who are into Latin American studies, or European studies, or European American studies. You see what I'm saying? I've never been interested in nobody else but me and my people, because so little focus has been placed on it. I feel like I was betraying them than studying any other aspect of society or history except my own, when we know so little about it. You know what I mean? So that was my main focus. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just take it back a little bit. Okay, because I have to throw myself in there. I started off as a sociology major. Actually, I started in politics. I wanted to be in politics. And
Mm,
then
mm,
I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I was just like, this is some bullshit. Like, this is a sham. Like, I was going through a mental
yeah.
crisis. And then I went into
Mhm.
sociology. And I'm not
Mm,
gonna lie, sociology fucked me up. Like I
mhm.
didn't, at the time I was so young, I didn't know
Yeah.
how to emotionally detach myself enough to where I
Hmm.
felt like I could make a difference. I was
Yeah. Yeah.
appalled at the the strategies, the antics in which were used to control a mass of people, and the fact that the information was given away so
Hmm.
easily. Like literally all you had to do was pick up a book and look at it.
Hmm.
Like we went through that
Hmm.
whole, like, especially with sociology 101, like at the beginning, we talk about
Yeah.
media, and we get into the psychology of media and propaganda, and things of this
Hmm.
nature. And like when media first started, and like how they were hiring hypnotists and psychiatrists and psychologists, and this is
Hmm.
how they made
Right.
commercials. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like
absolutely.
basically
Absolutely.
like hypnotize. And so I was like, you guys are cheaters. Like,
Hmm.
how do
Yeah.
you,
Hmm.
and it felt like you're kind of taking away people's choice, and it felt
Hmm.
like a betrayal against humanity, if that sounds
Hmm.
right. And so it
Yeah.
fucked me up.
Yeah. Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
as you being the man that kind of has the voice for the underdog, kind of the protector of the underdog, how do you stay detached emotionally
Hmm.
enough
Hmm.
to stick to it, basically?
Well, it's two strategies. Um, you ever heard of a man named Eldridge Cleaver? You ever heard of him? He was a Black
Mm-hmm.
Panther from the 60s. And he wrote a book called Soul on Ice. And basically the premise, the title sounds real cool. Soul on Ice. That's a badass title. But what it means is, let's say you go to the grocery store and you buy some ground beef because you want to cook it in a couple of days. If you leave it on the counter, what's going to happen to it eventually? It's going to spoil, right? So what do? You put it in the freezer so you can come back in 2 weeks and it'll still be okay because it's on ice. What Eldridge Cleaver said he had to learn to do in order to help his people was to put his soul on ice. Meaning, when I'm doing this work, I'm not allowing myself to feel the emotions that the average person feels that's not doing this work. And they shouldn't be expected to because they're not doing this work. You understand what I'm saying? It's like I'm held to a higher standard than somebody that I'm trying to enlighten because I should have been trained in order to be emotionally detached. So, in other words, when I'm studying the most depressing aspects of society, the most dastardly things they do, like you described, hypnotizing you with commercials, or a lot of people don't know that in the early days of the movie theater, every 30 seconds they would send you a message like buy popcorn, buy popcorn. It was so fast that your eye didn't recognize it. And all of a sudden you're going to get popcorn. You're not even hungry. When you study all of these things, it'll make you mad. It'll make you want to fight and hurt. But in order to be effective, you cannot do that, right? Um, a heart surgeon that's as great as your favorite basketball player, say like a Michael Jordan, right? If you look at them in their greatness, when it's time to apply their craft, they're not overly aggressive. They're not overly excited. They're cerebral, like a sniper. He's good at what he does because he can stay calm, because the weather doesn't bother him, because he can adjust to things. Why? Because he's emotionally detached. And that's not saying that I don't feel or I don't understand. But whatever emotions that I have, whether they're sadness or happiness, they're for my pillow at night. But when I'm on my mission or I'm on my post, I have to be cerebral. I have to be frigid. I have to be unbiased. I have to see both sides of this thing, even the good side and the bad side, because even the good side may be wrong if they don't fully understand something. You see what I'm saying? And that's why the good side is laughing at you, because you haven't made a proper analysis of this, because you're feeling too much sadness. You too emotionally attached to the subject. You got to be able to separate yourself a little bit. And as I get better in doing that, I'm able to be more effective. There was a time when there were certain movies or certain songs that I would hear that's just telling the truth, but they would make me so mad, I'd be wanting to fight somebody. You're not rude. You see what I'm saying? You have to be able to say, okay, this is what happened. That's the truth. The truth must be told. Let's analyze why it happened. Not only so that we can never forget, but so that we won't repeat those mistakes again. You have to, for football, for instance, you study the film of the game you just played. You don't study the touchdowns. You don't study the good things that you did. You study the bad things that you did, so you can see where you're making mistakes, so you won't repeat them. But if you're so emotionally tied to it, well, I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to see myself fumble. I don't want to see myself miss that tackle. You're doing more harm to yourself than good, because what you're doing is training yourself to ignore real issues that you have, that you're never going to be able to move forward or succeed until you address them. You understand what I'm saying? We as an oppressed people have more of those hangups than the average race. And it's not our fault. But because we feel so much sadness and so much depression about it, we lie to ourselves. And as long as we continue to lie to ourselves, what you see is what you get. It's not going to get any better until you are ready to address first your issues, your problems. And we can't help this. This is what they did. But this is what we can help. This is what we do have a little control over, is how we look at this and how we look at that. And I don't care what they think about me. It's how you think about yourself and why you think a certain thing. Do you think a certain thing because they want you to think that? Or do you think a certain thing because it's a proper analysis of the situation? In other words, you can hate yourself so much that you don't know you hate yourself. But it's reflected in the things that you say and the things that you do and the lies that you parentally tell from generation to generation in your family. You understand what I'm saying? If that makes sense. Everybody got the old great grandmother that was a Cherokee Indian, right? Because her nose is straight and her hair is straight and her high cheekbones are high. 90% of those stories are not true. We just don't want to face the fact that a lot of our ancestors were raped. And a lot of those features that we have are European features. You understand what I'm saying? That's what I mean by continuing to tell these dumbass lies over and over again to protect an ego from facing the truth. You can't get out of this situation if you aren't able to face the truth. You know, I don't mean to ramble, but
no, you're fine. No, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Because my objective with my practice is to get people to understand emotional control. And when we say the word emotional detachment, it doesn't mean to go zombie like or numb or to
right.
not deal with it. It means that you are in control because you have dealt. And what you're saying is you cannot deal or have control unless you speak your truth and you're dealing with your facts. You know what I'm saying? If you're not taking
And
that time to
if
find
you
your
know and
facts and
accept
your
something, it can't
truth.
hurt you.
Exactly. Exactly. No,
Yeah.
so that whole rant was you were supposed to. Okay. So now we get to Tennessee and we're playing football. Are we excited about
Mm-hmm.
this? This is a new venture. We're in a new space. Are we nervous?
Mm-hmm.
Are you knowing people? Like, what's going on?
I don't know anybody, and I'm not nervous because I know, number one, that a lot of people don't believe I can do certain things, but I know that I can do certain things. And I'm not trying to tell you I'm anybody's Ray Lewis, because I was not. I was not a great athlete, but I worked hard at getting there. You know what I'm saying? There were people that were 10 times better athletes than me that didn't work as hard as I was. I could outlast them. Like if we were in a tackling drill, you may be kicking my ass the first 3 plays, but it's 9 innings in a baseball game. You know what I mean? After a while, you're going to get tired. Now I'm kicking your ass because I'm not getting tired. You see what I'm saying? Because I worked
Yeah.
hard. And I couldn't outrun nobody. I wasn't stronger than nobody. But one thing I was tougher than everybody. And that's something I can control. I can't control how tall God made me. I can't control
Right.
how much speed God gave me, but I can control how tough I am. And I'd be damned if you're
Right.
tougher than me. You know what I'm
I
saying?
respect
So
that.
I wasn't
I
nervous.
respect that.
Yeah. So I wasn't nervous, but I was excited. And it's amazing how when you're young, what's important to you, right? I look back at that. I love football to this day, but the way how much I took it serious is almost embarrassing. You know, uh, to take something so serious, running around some really grown men at that, 18, 19, 20, grown men running around with tights on, trying to knock the hell out of each other. It's amazing. It's almost embarrassing how serious I took it. But I still got that love for it. You know what I mean? I can watch football every day of the week. That's how much I loved it. Yeah. So when you love something, it's not like work. You know what I mean? You don't get nervous either because you can't wait to do it. Something you get
Exactly.
nervous at, yeah, you may not need to be doing that because nervousness is Mother Nature's way of telling you to beware or to be cautious, or maybe you shouldn't go down that road. I'm a little nervous when I hear that bush shaking in the corner. You know what I'm saying? 100,000 years ago, it's because it was a leopard behind the bush. That's why you still got that in you. You understand what I'm saying? So what you want to do ought to make you feel good. It should make you nervous. You know what I mean? So yeah. So I was like a pig in slop. I was right where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. Even if I was getting my ass kicked every day on the football field, that's where I wanted to be. Yeah.
So tell me about your college experience. Was it a whole new world? Was it like totally different? Were you comfortable? Like, oh, this is kind of like Mississippi, the South is the same, or was it like literally like a total shift?
Yeah, it was different. Like just like the television shows, a different world. You know what I mean? Because everywhere, everybody where you from is where you from. And I don't care if you go to college in Bucksnort, Tennessee. There's gonna be people from New York. There's gonna be people from Puerto Rico. There's gonna be people from, you know what I'm saying? So it's like another planet. But that's the purpose of it, to get you to learn how to adapt to the real world. Everybody doesn't look like you. Everybody doesn't think like you. And that's part of the preparation. One of the first times you're away from home, away from your neighborhood, is when you go to college, and it becomes like your second home. And all the moments aren't good, and all the moments certainly are bad. But when you look back at it, that was the best time of my life. You know what I mean? I learned so many things. I met so many people that I may not have taken the time to thank them for the impact that they had on my life, and they might not even know that they had one, but they did. And so many years removed, I still remember some of them people. You understand what I mean? It was a great experience that I wouldn't have traded for the world. And it's also hammers home the point to me that nothing happens by accident. And sometimes something that you think that you might want, it ain't the best thing for you. So the universe kind of give you the other thing. And then you be like, oh shit, this did work out better. Me being over here than being over there. But in my immaturity, if I had to pick what I wanted, it might not have ended up so well. You see what I'm saying? So I do believe the universe kind of places you in places that you should be rather than where you want to be. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So we're in college. What are some monumental times in college? As far as your mentality, like mental shifts.
It's well, I put it like this. One of the major things I can remember when I first got there, right? All my friends, my roommates, all my friends, some of them would become my future frat brothers, right? They would go out and kick it all night and come back like in the morning when the sun came up. And what did I do? At 10 o'clock, I was studying, I did my homework, and I went to bed. Why? Because I get my ass whooped at home if I didn't do that. So I remember the first time my roommate, hey, Sam, come with me. I was like, man, it's like 12 o'clock. They was like, so? And then I stopped and I was like, man, mom and daddy's 7 hours away. I can go out. So that's when you start to grow up like, wow. You see what I'm saying? But it took a minute. You know what I mean? That's one of the first monumental moments. And it sounds stupid, but that was, I can say the first time I stopped thinking like a boy and started thinking like a man, like, hey, I can make my own decisions. Hey, because I was still acting like a mama's boy, see? I was getting into bed and I wasn't going out because I didn't want to get in trouble. Like, they don't know what I'm doing. So if I want to go out, I can go out. That's when I started to notice the shift in my thinking from a boy to a man. That was one of the most monumental reasons. I'll always remember that moment, yeah. And I'm like, damn, I can go out, you know. I can make my own decisions, you know what I'm saying?
So did we experiment with anything? Like, I mean, of course, drinking is out there. That's popular. Did we experiment with
Mm-hmm.
any drugs?
No. There was one thing there was plenty of where I was from was drugs. And I was a good student. I was a quick study. And a lot of the people that were around me that did drugs, I knew I did not want to be like them. So I never was curious about drugs, ever. And truth be told, I have smoked marijuana one time and it didn't do nothing, so I just never tried it again. And no other drug at all. Now I drink quite often, but that's a lot different than, you know, some of the drugs people around me were using.
No, I
But
totally
I
get
never
that.
was curious. And a guy told me one time, um, he was addicted to crack. We grew up together. It's sad, but he became so addicted to crack. You know, he was in college. He dropped out of college, and like, I know where he is right now. I can go find him. If he ain't died since I last seen him, I know exactly where he is. And I asked him one time, I said, why do you smoke crack? Why do you do that? He said, man, it feels better than sex. I said, I would not be trying that because you probably telling the truth. And if that's what it feel like, no wonder you in the situation you in. You understand what I'm saying? So if the end result is being you, I don't want none of that.
I'm good.
So
I'm good.
I never got caught up in that. Yeah, I never got caught up in that.
I love it because that's my excuse too. And then too, I come from a family of addictive personalities, if that's what you want to call it. My
Mm-hmm.
father's a crackhead.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
am one of those people where I don't deny myself anything that I like. So I'm like, why?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a Gemini, so I'm naturally curious. I ask a lot of questions. And when you talk to people,
Mm-hmm.
that response that you just got was what I heard when I asked
Mm-hmm.
questions about certain drugs. It's like, oh, it's
Right.
better than
Right.
sex, or this shit is so good. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hell no,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. Or like, um, man, it feel like winning the lottery every day. It's, oh no, I don't need that because I would be just as addicted as you are, as you are to it. And anything that can eventually take control of you and won't allow you to be able to be your own person, I don't want that. I'm good. You know, I'm high already, just living life. You know what I mean? I can find so much joy in other things that won't hurt me that I never was curious about drugs. So many people were around me, but I didn't mind being the one guy that wasn't doing it. You know what I mean? Give me a beer or some gin, I'm good. I don't need all that other stuff, you know.
I
But
totally
I've seen
understand.
people, yeah, I've seen people throw their lives away, just trying something out because somebody said it felt so good. You know what I mean? And it did end up, it did. And you just kept on and kept on until the dependency on feeling good. See, sometimes something that feels good isn't good for you. But if you're not happy with yourself and your reality, you're trying to escape. And even if it's for a few minutes, if I can escape by feeling good using something artificial, I'm going to do it to the point where you get all day because you hate your situation or who you are so much, if that makes sense. And I've
Yeah.
never, no matter how bad something feels, it ain't gonna get no better until you face it and fix it. And you can't do that unless you're sober. You know what I'm saying? So I never wanted to be high on anything. Now I've been drunk a whole lot, you know what I mean? But I ain't never
Right.
wanted to be, I ain't never wanted to be beholden to something chemically. You know, if that makes sense, yeah.
No,
Even
that
back
makes
when I was
total
a kid,
sense.
mm-hmm, there were commercials that would say marijuana will kill your brain cells. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know if that's true, but I was like, okay, yeah, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? You don't get but so many. You know, I don't want to kill none of them. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, with the eggs, this is your brain
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
drugs.
I was like, oh, yeah, shit, I don't want none of that. Absolutely.
Okay. So now I would like to ask a question. Might sound random, maybe not.
Mm.
But was there ever a point in your life where you were just like, I gotta do something different? Like, this is not working out. Like, if I keep down this
Mm-hmm,
path, like, I'm
mm-hmm,
worried. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm
mm-hmm,
nervous.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I've had jobs that I were on that I was gonna have a heart attack and die from the pace of it, or from the stress or the lack of sleep that you got. But it takes
Are
courage
you
to
like,
leave
I'm like,
something.
are you allowed to discuss these jobs?
Well, let's say like in the let's just say social work field, where you have um people that are beholden to you, and you're responsible for people, and their problems become your problems, and their mishaps become your mishaps, and you judge by how you navigating them through these problems to become successful. And when you're doing that with people that literally need your help, you get calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you just got home at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you got to go out and deal with this before you can even get in the car good going back home. You get another call, and then somebody, that guy you was helping, died, or that girl you was helping, she was raped, and this stuff will weigh on you. And even though you feel like you're doing good, you help one person and 10 bad things happen to 10 other people. That's hard to deal with. And when you really are putting yourself into it fully, and you're getting headaches and things, and the doctor say, hey man, you know, a job is one thing, but you only get one life. You can get another job. You might want to walk away from this for a minute. I've been in situations like that. I've been in situations where I was standing up for something, and it became very dangerous. And you made the decision that, hey, um, you're born to die. So one of the last fears you got to conquer is death. And if you ain't scared to die, you kind of got this thing figured out. You know what I mean? So I've been in situations
Yeah.
where, you can't, you might not get out of this thing. Do you do it? Well, is it the right thing to do? Yes. Well, do it. And if you die, die, man. So you'll die anyway one day. So I've been in situations like that, you know what I mean, where it was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get out of this thing, but it's the right thing to do, so I'm gonna do this thing. And I've had more of those experiences than I care to remember, but it always ended out okay in the end. Well, I've been in riots, some that may or may not have started, you know. Um, um, some of the things that we're watching on TV right now, I was dealing with 20 years ago before it was on TV, and nobody knew we were out there dealing with it. And some people that was with me aren't on this planet anymore. Not because they were doing something bad, but because they was fighting against injustice, and they're not here no more. That was a real thing. And learning how to read the tea leaves and knowing when to get out of a situation, or saying, hey, let's run so we can live to fight another day. Or the willingness is there, but we're not equipped to deal with that right there. Let's just walk away. It doesn't mean you're less of a man. It means you're smarter. You know what I'm saying? I've been in situations like that. And but you learn to embrace those situations, because those situations are what make you who you are. And again, what makes a man a coward, what makes a man a brave man. They feel the same way, so the way they react to it. And I think it was Dr. King that said, if you're not willing to die for something, your life ain't worth living. So as long as you're right, good trouble is a good thing. You know what I mean? But I've been in situations where it was professionally or revolutionary, where the next moment wasn't promised, but you always knew you were right, so you did it anyway. And some of those things I can't talk about, some of them I can't, but I'm still here. You know what I mean? And I think if you stand
And
for what's right, you'll always
and
be
so
okay.
I'm sorry, in some of those situations, because things, this is life, and it's raw, and our emotions
Mm-hmm.
are very raw. And at times, especially when you can feel that you are advocating for what is right, and you are willing
Mm-hmm.
to put your life on the line for what you feel is right, how do you
Mm-hmm.
decipher, or how did you decipher? Because there's emotional maturities and there's levels to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But before you got,
Mm-hmm.
to where you are now, what was the calming down factor while you're in the midst of it? You know what I'm saying? While you're in the thick of
Mm-hmm.
it, and it's like, yo, this
Mm-hmm.
situation can go either right where we all die, fuck it, or I can
Mm-hmm.
simmer this
Mm-hmm.
down and live to fight another day. How do you bring
Right.
yourself down? You know what I'm saying? To not say we
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm.
die, fuck it.
Right. Right. Well, um, first of all, if you can't think, you can't win. The best boxers never get mad. Like, you the one want to be a boxer. So if you get hit in the face, what you get mad at him for? That's what he's supposed to be doing. You hit him in his face. So it's the guy that can stay the calmest is the guy that's gonna win. The guy that can outthink the other. And if you're mad and if you're angry, oh, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, you gonna always get defeated. So being calm and being able to think, you can think your way out of things. You know what I'm saying? You can be a better thinker than the person that's better armed than you and still win. So you can't see that opportunity to say, hey, man, let's make a retreat. Let's leave, because we can't win this thing. You can't recognize those moments if you're not thinking. A thinker will always be the non-thinker. No matter how big, no matter how strong that opponent is, if you can outthink him, you can win. And sometimes winning is living. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
My screen
Okay.
went out. But if yeah, just being able to recognize the outs and saying that, hey, all of us dying at this moment, tomorrow nobody would care. And that's one of the things uh, that will test you in terms of when you see people doing certain work, like a John Lewis or Stokely Carmichael or a Rosa Parks. You really got to love black people to fight for black people, because in our current mental state, they don't give a fuck that you even doing it. You see what I'm saying? Sort of like with children, you do certain things and you sacrifice certain things, not so they can recognize it, because you want them to be better, right? They don't even recognize you doing it. They don't even appreciate the stuff that you're doing. So we all die out here for this shit, and nobody will give a fuck tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Let's back off. We can't win anyway. Retreating is winning in and of itself, and that's being a wise soldier, a wise general. And if you can't think you're not gonna win, and you're not gonna be any good to anybody, dead anyway. So um, those are real decisions that had to be made on a daily basis. Like, is this even worth it? Because I've never entered into anything wanting to lose. I always want to win. Matter of fact, if I can't win it, I won't do it. You know what I'm saying? Uh, if I got offered $1 million to race Usain Bolt, I wouldn't even try. I can't beat him in a race. You know, I wouldn't even try. Waste of time. But it may be something crazy like, hey, I give you $1 million to fight Mike Tyson. If you win, you get the $1 million. I'm kind of crazy enough to think that I get at a shot, because I think I might get lucky, and it's his worst day and it's my best day, and I hit him with some crazy shit and knock his ass out. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna try nothing that I know I can't be successful at. It doesn't make logical sense. You know what I mean? So even with that mentality, you reduce your opportunities for the ultimate failure, which is entering into something, even if you're fighting for something that's right. Maybe that's not a fight worth fighting right now because you can't win it. So let's not even initiate it in the first place. You learn that as you get older. You know what I mean? And you try to tell young people something. Hey, I've been there. I wouldn't do this the way you're doing it. I know you're seeing other people do it, but understand this, that everybody that's with you ain't with you. Just understand that. And the very people you fighting against, they done planted people next to you. I done been there. I done thought that this guy was my friend, and he was a damn agent sent by the very people we trying to fight against. You know what I'm saying? Until you can get enough experience at this to recognize that nobody with you that you know is throwing shit at the police. And here come these people throwing shit at the police. That's the police. You see what I'm saying? That's when the tear gas come out. You understand what I'm saying? But being able to understand that, you know what I mean, and notice that, and not letting your fervency get the better of you. We all want to do something, so, you know, but doing the right thing, doing the smart thing is the most important of all. You know, if that makes sense. I ramble a lot. So
no, I got you. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. This rambling is great. You're going exactly where I want you to go. So, so now we've dabbled like I wanted to, kind of in what you're doing, and briefly covered the fight that you're out here fighting for. You know, so that leads us into the segue of what you're doing now. So we know that you have a podcast out. Go ahead and tell us about your podcast, what's going on with that, what you're talking about, where you can be found at.
Okay. I have a podcast called the Melanated Power Hour. And a lot of people, the biggest question is, what does that mean, Melanated Power Hour? Melanin is the chemical in your skin that gives you your skin color. So the Melanated Power Hour I guess using a scientific term is just another way of saying the Black Power Hour, but the Black Power Hour will probably get me in trouble, so I say the Melanated Power Hour because don't nobody know what that means. I guess they do now. But what we do is we discuss African diasporic history, history that you're not going to get in your school, and if you think about it, your enemy ain't supposed to teach you right, so he's supposed to be teaching that anyway. He's supposed to be teaching you his history. So you're supposed to teach yourself your history until you can have your own school. So that's what we do. It's a scholar's corner. We talk about books. We talk about ideas. We try to enlighten people on subjects kind of off the beaten path, meaning that it's good to talk about Rosa Parks and Dr. King, but everybody talk about them. I'm going to talk about some people you never heard of. And if you have heard of them, I'm going to teach you something about them that you didn't know. We welcome debate. We want people to challenge ideas and say I'm wrong so I can prove that I'm right. Or you prove that you're right. That's a scholarly thing. That's a gentlemanly thing. You know, that's how you learn. But we welcome that. We used to get letters at the beginning. We don't get too many now because I, destroyed some people before. But it's a labor of love in terms of if you don't know what the hell you talking about, don't call up in here because I will. Anybody can get it, right? Don't call up in here with an opinion. Call up in here with facts. Now I can't dispute facts, but I can dispute your opinion all day because just that is your opinion. But we're on. You can see us on iHeartRadio. Listen to us on iHeartRadio, Spotify. Pandora picked us up. They haven't started playing the episodes. They will soon. And we go live. When we're live on iHeart and Spotify, we're live on Facebook every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central. So you can actually watch it and hear it on Facebook. And I use a lot of pictures as teaching tools. Of course, if you're listening to the radio, the satellite radio, you can't see the pictures, but on Facebook, you can always go back and see those pictures that we put up to kind of help aid. I like to create a visual so people can, I can give you a name that you never heard of, but I can teach you a lot about them. But I'm old fashioned. I want you to know what that guy looked like. I want you to know what that woman looked like. If we talk about Harriet Tubman, I don't want you to see the picture of her as a 99-year-old lady that they always showed you. I want you to see a picture of her when she was 25 and she was a badass and she was beating up men and shooting people who was trying to catch her. And yes, I found a picture of her when she was 25 because I do research. You see what I'm saying? And maybe you will have a better idea of who she was when you find out that she was built like Serena Williams. And she was probably a better athlete than Serena Williams. Now it starts to make sense why they couldn't catch her. And she was smarter than everybody around her, even though she couldn't read, she could outthink people. So much so they call her a ghost. Literally, people thought she was a ghost. They thought she disappeared and reappeared. But she was just outthinking people and using her God-given athleticism to defeat a system of oppression that she wanted to get away from. But she loved people so much that when she got away from it, she would always come back to get somebody else. But we're not going to talk about the everyday thing about Harriet Tubman. We're going to talk about a side of her that you didn't even know existed. Yeah, that's what our show's about. That's what my podcast is about. Yeah. And not to go on and on about it, but it's about the off the beaten path side of African diasporic history, which is basically Black history, with no distinctions. There's too many distinctions between Black people. Unity is the only thing we ain't tried. It might work. But as long as you got African Americans and African Caribbeans, and I'm Jamaican, and I'm a Black Brazilian, and I'm a Black Puerto Rican. Yeah, I mean, we never gonna be a family until we can just say we Black or we African. You know what I'm saying? If you Black and you don't live in Africa, you are where you are because you was put on a boat and drugged there. So can't we just be Black for one day? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, but look, okay, because this is hilarious to me, right? So you're our expert today, because between me and you, you're the expert. No, you are. Between me and you, you're the expert. You've done a lot more research. I'm talking about between me and you, not our listeners. Between me and you, you're the expert. You're the specialist right now.
Okay.
So, with your wisdom and knowledge, because we have these discussions in this day and age with titles, right? So I love it when people ask me, you know, like, what's your nationality? What's your ethnicity? What's your race? Da 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 da. So I
Yeah.
always say, you know,
Yeah.
I'm half black and I'm half African American.
Right. Right.
People be like,
What the hell that mean?
so right, because to me it's all nonsense anyway. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. It's
'cause-
all what somebody else is calling you. You know, it's never what you calling yourself.
so if we were being as correct as we could be, technically, I mean, so what are we? Are we black? Are we freaking African Americans?
You know what we are? Now it's an English word, but I speak English. I don't know no other language, so I got to just say it. We're human, but that's all because if you know what human means, everybody can't be a human. And when you don't know who you are, you let other people call themselves by your name. What does human mean? That's some. I ain't gonna say it on here because I'm gonna make nobody mad. But look
No,
that up. Do some
say it.
homework, and you're gonna say,
Oh,
"Wow."
okay. You want us to do
Well,
the research? I'm like, go
what
ahead and say it.
well, what is you? What is you? What does hue mean? If you have a certain hue,
Color. Yeah, you have a
okay,
certain
yeah,
color. Yeah.
yeah. So everybody don't qualify to be a human being. Everybody don't qualify to be man. You can be mankind, but you don't need to just accept everyone's label for you. Human is good enough. Man of color, one man of color. You know what I mean? You can call yourself whatever you want to, but until we all start calling ourselves the same thing, we're not gonna be a family. You know what I'm saying? Just like your family has that same last name. No matter who gave it to you, you recognize each other by that last name. If we can't even agree on what to call each other, well, hell, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? Nobody else has that problem but us. Chinese people are not arguing about what to call themselves. They're Chinese. You know what I'm saying? Uh, um, and if it's multiple nationalities, they can agree on just being Asian. You know what I'm saying? They see no distinctions. We the only damn ones that, you know, today we a Negro, next week we colored. Somebody else say, I think Afro-American sound better. Okay, that's what it'll be this month. We can't agree on something. And these imaginary lines on maps, we identify, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Jamaican, and you African. And the only reason you're there is because you were drugged there. And I don't give a damn where you were born. If a pregnant cat crawled in the oven and had her kittens, they not biscuits because they in the oven. They still cats, they kittens. So if you can't be proud of being African and understanding that you're African, and if you even got a problem with that word, goddamn, can't you just say you black? What's wrong with that? Can't we just say we black? Why we got to be hyphenated this and hyphenated that? You understand? That's all other people's shit anyway. We've got to agree on. We can't even agree on what to call ourselves. You know, it's kind of sad, but I suggest human being because everybody
I
ain't.
love that. Yeah. Okay.
These words, these words. I know you're familiar with etymology, the science of words, and they never changed. Like, you know how people say the definition of words change over time? No, people's interpretation may change, but a word means what the fuck it meant when it was invented a million years ago, and you can't change it. And just some of the most simplest things that we learn in school, where you don't put them together. You know what I mean? It's really simple when you know how to look at things and why somebody is a man and somebody's mankind, and somebody's a man and somebody's a human. You know, it's just simple. You know, I mean, or a woman. What is it? What does warm mean? You know, everybody don't qualify. So we don't need to make up stuff. You know, even in this language we speak, there are distinct terms that are meant just for us, and we don't know that. We've been robbed of that information, you know. And you sound crazy as hell if you try to tell people, because don't nobody talk like this. And very few people know this. You know what I'm saying. But yeah, but that's
Well,
the
I appreciate you for putting that knowledge up on us real quick. Very simple. I'm sure everybody caught on to that shit. Okay, so now with your podcast, can you tell us, so is the Melanated Power Hour, has that been made a group, or can you just search it in, or is that on your personal page as far as on Wednesdays where to catch it
Yeah.
live at?
If you type in on Facebook, the Melanated Power Hour, the actual podcast page will come up, and you can like it and follow it, and you get updates and alerts it's on. And that's every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And you can go back and watch every episode that we've had on there. You can go to Spreaker.com. It's a podcast platform, and just type in the Melanated Power Hour. You can listen to all the past episodes. You can listen live on Wednesday night. You can do the same with iHeartRadio and Spotify, and pretty soon Pandora. And it's a classroom. It's not discriminatory. I know people who believe people who are into African diasporic history, the perception is by other people that they are racist. And a scholar is logical, and racism is illogical. So I don't waste any time on anything illogical. Now, if you want to believe me to be so, that's your right. That's your opinion. You're wrong. But we discuss truth. And if you're mad at me for telling you the truth, I don't want your friendship anyway. So if you don't want to be a friend of the truth, I don't want to be your friend. If I can't tell you the truth about things that have happened to me and my people, and this is why we're in some of the lower situations we are, and you enjoy some of the privileges that you do based solely on what your ancestors did to mine, if I can't express that truth to you, don't listen. Because you're not mad at me, you're mad at the truth. You're telling on yourself because you know it's the truth. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't be mad. You understand what I'm saying? You know this happened, and you don't want to take ownership of it. And sometimes just admitting that, yeah, it's wrong what happened to you. Yeah, we owe you reparations. Yeah, I enjoy a privileged position based on not necessarily something that I did, but something that somebody before me did, and nobody ever made that shit right. You know what I mean? It's also learning not to be ashamed of yourself. Because, yeah, Black people act crazy as hell. But just like a battered woman that never went and sought help, what else are you expected to act like? Being beaten and worked for free and raped every damn day and night for 400 years. What condition are we supposed to be in? Ain't nobody ever put us on a couch as a people and fixed us. You understand what I'm saying? And that's real, and I take that serious. And if I can do anything to kind of alleviate some of that pain just by getting you to understand why we are the way we are, it's not your fault. It's what has been done to you. And a lot of that stuff is passed down from generation to generation to generation. And you can trace the way we act to a slave mentality that we still have because nobody's ever fixed it. Nobody ever sat us on the couch and fixed us. After all the shit Black people been through, it's a wonder why we ain't even crazier than we are right now.
Thank
But
God.
when you see us in all our depravity and the way we act, and they don't know any better. You damn right we don't know any better. It's your fault we don't know any better. You damn right our test scores are low. You wouldn't let us read for 400 years. There's a lot of single mothers out here. You damn right. You ever heard of slavery? Do you know what they did to us? Do you know that sometimes the only worth you had on the plantation was your ability to bear children for a master, or to be a man that was studied out to create as many children as he could without being a parent to any of them? Does that sound familiar? Nobody ever broke that cycle. No, nobody ever fixed that. And if I could do a little something to get you to understand that you act in this way, not because you're a bad person, because you've been trained, you've been brainwashed. You've been so brainwashed that you don't know you've been brainwashed. And the person that you will fight me over is the person that got you acting like that. And if I can get him to understand that, yes, this is why we act like this. This is what your granddaddy did to mine. My granddaddy was rich. Your granddaddy hit him in the head, stole his money. Now that's why you're rich. And there was 100% tax on our labor where we didn't get paid anything. For 400 fucking years, you made the equivalent of $24 trillion off of our labor. And you were able to go to college with that. You were able to purchase homes with that. You were able to make your children affluent with their education and being doctors. And we one step removed from sharecropping because we were denied that. That's a real thing. That's not imaginary. You can't pick up yourself by your bootstraps when you don't have boots. You understand what I mean? So until we can recognize those kind of real life, quantitative, empirical data things that can be proven, can be shown, we're not gonna move forward in this country. You understand? If you can't even admit to what has been done, how we gonna move forward? I'm not gonna let you move forward until you at least acknowledge this shit. But it ain't my fault, you damn lie. Because if I got a family member that dies, whatever debts he owed, I owe them debts, don't I? I got to pay them debts, right? You are responsible. You're on the hook now. The children of those who did this to us, you're on the hook for making this right. And reparations ain't a check. It's repairing the damage that you did. No black person should have to pay rent in this country. No black person should have to pay a mortgage in this country. No black person should have to pay for education. That's what reparation is. Until the damn sun burn out. Not in this country. Because we built the damn thing. And we get no credit for it. We received no pay for it for 400 years. Now I mean to go off on a tangent, but
no, but this is important, and this is important. That's what my story is about. And then what do you say to, even because there are even people of color that feel like, oh my God, that happened 400 years ago, and even the stuff you're talking about happened in the 60s. We are in 2020. Like, get over it. How we supposed to move on if you ain't getting over it?
Right. Well, some things you're not supposed to get over. I don't ever hear a Jewish person say, what do the Jewish people say? They say, don't forget. Don't you ever forget. You understand what I mean? Any other race of people that has been through an atrocity, it is an obligation to remember those things. Primarily so you can't forget them, or so you won't repeat them. And it's paying your ancestors. I believe it's a very African thing to observe ancestor veneration, which means that you raise up your ancestors at every opportunity you get. But to get over something, if somebody walked in your house and beat the hell out of your mother, will you get over that? Come on now. And for somebody to bring up the fact that, oh, it happened in the 60s, or oh, it happened in 400 years ago, you can't tell time. Because historically speaking, 1,000 years ago was last week. If anything that happens less than 10,000 years ago, it still directly affects you. You don't understand. You may know that there's 60 seconds in a minute. You may know that there's 10 years in a decade, but that's about the only time you can tell if you think 400 years ago was a long time ago. If you think the 60s was a long time ago. You understand what I'm saying? So we have to understand certain prerequisites. And a lot of people make comments, and it's not their fault. And I've developed that. Developed that mentality that if you're black, I'm gonna love you regardless of your condition, because I know what made you that way. I was there, right there with you. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna put you down, but I will give you some tough love or some harsh facts to get you to understand that what you're saying is stupid and you should stop. Because the very people that did this to you are laughing at you. Because everything that you're saying, all those little comebacks that they make, I can look at my watch and I can tell when each one of them about to come, because we've been programmed to give them answers. You know what I'm saying? And I can almost say it before they get it out of their mouth, because it makes sense to you in lieu of the proper information. Everybody else is doing so well. You know, what's wrong with us? How come we can't? Nobody been through what we've been through. Like, you can't compare us to Latinos. They know their names. They know their histories. We were robbed of our names. Like, as hard as I try to do the genealogy of my family and study my family back as far as I can get them, I would never be able to really do it, because we were robbed of our names to the point where I know that the last slave owner to own my family's last name was Polk. That's why my name is Sam Polk, right? So I was studying, I would find an ancestor from the 1850s, but I can't get any further. Why? Because who's to say 2 weeks before slavery ended, before that slave owner named Polk bought that slave, that was my ancestor, that he didn't belong to a man named Smith. But how would I know that? Where would I find that information? So this guy named Smith may be a relative of mine, but I was robbed of my night. You see what you get what I'm saying? And you can forget tracing the African name, because it's so far gone. And it's so hurtful, because you got different races that can trace their ancestry back 2,000 years, 3,000 years. We can't even go 100. You understand what I mean? Because when you get a bunch of Africans on a boat, right, and you get to a plantation, and a Senegalese woman falls in love with a Nigerian man, what is the baby? The tribal ties that the mother had and the father had, they can teach the child. But what if the mother and the father are sold away and they never meet the child? So that's why we're the only black people in the world that identify as African, because that's all the fuck we know. Africans on the continent don't identify themselves as African. They say I'm Nigerian. They say I'm Congolese. They say I'm a member of the Igbo tribe. They know their history. They know their names. We don't have none of that. So the closest we can come to it is just to say we're African. You see what I mean? Exactly. And you robbed us of all of this. You robbed us of all of this. So I feel no remorse. I don't feel sorry at all for offending anybody. If you were offended, you're supposed to be offended, because I'm just telling the truth. So if that make you feel a certain kind of way, don't listen to me, because I'm gonna make you feel like that every week if you don't like the truth. You know what I mean? But it's out of love for my people, and we're the only people who can't love ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Being pro-black means that you're pro-you. It doesn't mean you're anti anybody else. You know, when you're on the plane, they say if it depressurized, put the mask on yourself first. Why? Because you can't help nobody dead, so help yourself first. I just want to help. Let's put us first for a change. That's nobody else's job to do but ours. And everybody else is doing a great job at it. We the only ones that's not. You understand what I mean? We the only people. I ain't gonna get into that, but we got some serious problems. We got some serious problems, and a lot of them are psychological, and they come from what happened to us. And a lot of the work of those who do what I do is to understand some of those psychological deficits that we have and try to alleviate some of that pain by first understanding where it comes from, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense, and I appreciate you for going down that journey, because in short, it is. And I listened to your interview with Dr. Annette. I forgot her last name, but
Oh,
that's a good
Harrell.
Haraya.
Dr.
That's a good
Antoinette Harrell, yeah. I'm
that's a
sorry.
good interview for our listeners to go back and check out, because you guys talked about a man named Dennis and his perception, and that played so keen because we are product of our environments, and our environments shape our perceptions. And so when you have
Mm-hmm.
generations of people that you have never left, because like I said, a lot of us don't leave our home states. We don't travel out. Maybe you might go on a vacation here and there, but particularly that is your environment. So your
Mm-hmm.
perception is that narrow or limited as such. And
Mm.
at the beginning of this interview, we even talked about ass whooping. You know what I'm saying? And so in our
Mm-hmm.
culture, especially in
Mm-hmm.
my family, that's something like, if you were to say I don't whoop my kid, people are looking at you like you're crazy. You know what I'm saying? And then when
Right,
I
yeah.
got into
Mm-hmm.
some Black studies, and the theory was brought up that children are whooped because we were whooped, and that's how we were taught to discipline. And I was kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy as hell. But then,
Mm-hmm.
that was my young mind as a teenager. But then as I looked at the scenario, my great grandmother, we originate from Jackson, Tennessee, actually, my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm.
as kids, we were literally like, you were made to go pick your own switch and get your ass whooped.
Absolutely.
And
Mm-hmm.
belts were like unheard of. We went through a short period of belts, and that's maybe because mama couldn't find the extension cord.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I can
Mm-hmm.
remember getting whooped and being forced to sit in tubs, or maybe, it was time to go swimming. It didn't matter that you had welts on you. But when you think
Mm-hmm.
about a
Mm-hmm.
generational thing, the perceptions that are narrow and not broadened, of course. And then so you have a group of people that went through inhumane, animalistic um, behaviors were put on people. I mean, things that like you don't even like to talk about, horrendous,
Right.
disgusting,
Right.
vile.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
how do you expect those? And these are human beings; these are not animals. How do you expect that culture of people to be? You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Right.
So I
Mm-hmm.
definitely appreciate you for going down that journey and giving that explanation. So, is there anything that, just off the top of your brain, at this moment, as spirit moves you, that you would like to say?
I would like to say to anybody who is listening to me, um, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Asian, indigenous, or whatever, the most important thing that you can do, I feel, with your life is to remember those who came before you. So if you are black, please take the time out, if it's not only but once a week, to learn something about yourself, your people in general, and understand that our beginning in this world did not start in 1619. It started thousands of years before that. Um, if you're black, please know this. And if you don't know it, go research it. We are the architects of civilization. this can be proven. So it is not befitting the architects of civilization to be some of the most uncivilized people in the world. But if you only knew who your daddy was, maybe you would act like him. You understand? We created math. We invented science, modern medicine. Um, um, some of the things that you take for granted, like if you like seafood, right? Who doesn't like hush puppies? Do you even know where the word hush puppy comes from? You probably eat them all the time. Just learning little facts like when slaves would run away and they would sick the dogs on them, they would take meal and mash it together and cook them or bake them. And what as a hush puppy, they would throw those to the dogs, so the dogs would go eat those and they could get away. That's why it's called a hush puppy. It's to hush the puppy. Just learning little things like this. Um, Knowing that you were the first to invent a window. The idea of putting a window in your home so you can see outside is an African invention. Just knowing that spirituality in and of itself is an African invention. Just knowing that your ancestors were on the planet for 300,000 years before anybody else was. We were already ancient before the next person appeared on the planet, the next race of human being. If you knew this, I think you would take a bigger pride in who you were. And I don't give a damn if you sweep floors for a living. You would be the best damn floor sweeper there was, because you're supposed to be the best at everything you do because you created everything. Some of our counterparts take credit for some of our inventions, but the only invention they ever invented was the copyright, so that they can say that something was theirs that's not. You understand? There's nothing new to the African. We invented it all. And even just calling yourself an African, it'll leave a bad taste in some Black people's mouths. You've been trained to think that way, but that's who you are. And there's no greater love than to not only recognize who you are, but to say who you are it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to be what God made you, and you shouldn't have to apologize for that. Nobody else does. You can have a St. Patrick's Day. You can have a Chinatown, but go try to have a Black town. And well, hell, we did. They burned them down. You understand
Right.
what I mean? Tulsa,
They
Oklahoma,
did.
Tulsa, Oklahoma, anyone. So if I can leave that with anybody, my day hasn't been a waste. If I can inspire at least one person to take me up on that, and study yourself, learn something about yourself every day here with at least one person. And I have done my job if I can convince somebody, at least one person, to do that.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
that's what
I love that. And that's also in my interpretation too, is basically whatever you have been taught not to study, study, because that's where most of the answers lie,
mm,
and
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and I want to put that out there too, because my siblings, my nieces, nephews are partial white, you know,
mm-hmm,
and um, so I have to put that out there to say this is that as a culture of people, we have to think on a common sense level, just on a common sense level. You don't have to be the most educated scholar on the planet, but just
mm-hmm,
to know that all the all the extremes that have been gone through to hide our truth, to
mm-hmm,
hide our history, um,
mm-hmm.
to hide our monumental moments, has to tell you something is very special about this culture of people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And
And
everybody knows who you are except you.
there is a power that has to be diminished because of fear.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that is something for us to delve into, and it'll help find our personal power. So I really appreciate you, because I feel like you are one of our ambassadors out here, um, giving massive amounts of information to the masses, which is definitely what we need right now. And I am very thankful for your research, for your patience, for your gratitude in our culture. And we are just so thankful for everything that you contribute we have going on as a people. So, having had said that, I want to thank you, Sam Polk, for coming on to the show. I want to thank everybody else for tuning in to this week's episode of the You Thrive Every Day show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope that you guys learned a lot, and most importantly, I hope you guys are thriving every day. Again, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Catch us on the next episode of You Thrive Every Day. You guys are loved, and I just want to say I appreciate you. Have a great, miraculous day. We will talk soon.